Literary Movements and Trends in English Literature, Part 13. Today we'll be talking about postmodern age, and this is the last one. Then we'll finish up with the literary movements. And now talking about Black Arts Movement. So this was similar to the Harlem Renaissance, and it was after the Civil War, Black people were given freedom, and they talked about Black nationalism. And important writers were Larry Neal, Amiri Barka, Toni Morrison, Alice Walker, June Jordan. These were the important writers. And now talking about existentialism. So, existentialism, what does this mean? This means that life is meaningless and we are supposed to give meaning to our lives. So, we are the ones, those who can give meaning to it. And it included the important writers like Franz Kafka, Jean Paul Sartre, Albert Camus, Samuel Beckett, Simone de Beauvoir. So these were the important writers, and Jean Paul Sartre was the one who used this term first. Now talking about agitprop. So this was a short name for agitation of propaganda, and it was a political strategy which was used to influence the public opinion. And in Russia also it was used to give message to the public, and in India it was introduced by Sabdar Hashmi. So now talking about theater of cruelty, it is connected to surrealism, and the founder of it was Antonin Artaud, influenced by Henri Breton surrealism and ideas of Sigmund Freud. So theater of cruelty was in late 1930s and deals with these certain events that would shock the audience. So feature to refer its features are to transfer sense of pain and suffering using gestures and sounds. So yeah, gestures and sounds were used, and there would be noises like scream, cry. So these were the universal concept that were used, and important writers are Antonin Artaud, Jean Genet. So these are the important writers. Now, talking about epic theatre, so that focused on the social and the political change that was based on reason and not on emotions. So, Bertolt Brecht was a German playwright and was influenced by Erwin Picasso and was also influenced by Marxist views, and talked about V effect, which is V Fremdung effect, which means alienation, and encourages the audience with the rational thoughts. And gestures means the style of acting that uses gestures and facial expressions that were more focused. And important works were Three Penny Opera, Mother Courage and Her Children. So these were the important works of Bertolt Brecht. Now talking about Angry Young Man movement. So this was a group of English novelists and playwrights, and these were the ones those who were writing in the post Second World War era. So Lizzie Paul book Angry Young Man. So this name was taken from this book. So three features that are revolt against the social inequality, criticism of manners, and portrayal of social status of youth. So these were the important features. And talking about the important writers were John Osborne, Kingsley MS, Edward Bond, Ellen Silito, David Story, and Arnold Wesker. So these were the important writers. Now talking about kitchen sink drama. So this was the term which was coined by John Bradby, and it was to describe the British cultural movement that developed in the late 1950s and 60s. So it features hero in this drama were the angry young men, and kitchen sink drama talks about women were assumed to serve men in the household works, and talks about the domestic life, household work, and kitchen and suffering of male members. So, example of it could be that John Osborne's book "Look Back in the Anger" is an example of kitchen sink drama. Now, talking about theater of absurd. So, that absurd, what does this mean? It means that life is meaningless. And literary movement, it was a literary movement that basically lasted for 30 years from 1950 to 1980. And Albert Camus' theory work Myth of Sisyphus describes that the life is meaningless, and theater of absurd was coined by Martin Esslin. So this is important to remember. And important writers with their works are Samuel Beckett, Waiting for Godot, Harold Pinter, Homecoming, Jean Genet, Homemaids, Eugene Zine, Bald Soprano, Edward Elthian, Zoo Story, Tom Stoppard, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Return, Arthur Adenoff, Ping Pong. So these are the important works. Its features are that time and place are not made clear, and allegoric and symbolic representation is there, and no character development and long pauses are there. So these are its feature. And when Beckett died in 1989, it ended. So this theater of absurd ended then. Now talking about theater of the oppressed. Now this was the theater workshop, and it was founded by Augusto Boyle, and it began in 1970s and wanted to create a theater in which more active and something that is educational and how people should deal with the oppressions. So this basically dealt with these things, and there was no catharsis, which means pity and fear. There was nothing like that. Now talking about Beat Generation. So this was the group of American writers of 1950, and they rejected the literary formalism and problem faced in the post Second World War era. And writers were like Ellen Ginsberg, Gary Sender, Gregory Corso, Herbert Huncke, William S. Bogg. So these were the important writers, and they were influenced by the romantic writers like Shelley and Blake, and they used the colloquial language and talked about drugs in their poetry, and they also talked about sexuality. Next comes confessional poetry. So this was in 1950 and 1960, and it was in America, and it basically dealt with the confessions, personal subject matter, divorce, mental illness, love, relationship, sexual abuse, and it was in autobiographical nature. So it included the important writers like Robert Lowell, Sylvia Plath, John Berryman, Annie Sexton, Ellen Ginsberg, W.D. Sindokraus. So these were the important writers, and the term was used by M.L. Rosenthal when he was reviewing Robert Lowell's book Life Studies and Poetry as a Confession. So this is important in this way. Now the last comes is the movement poets. So these were the poets of 1950, and it was the term which was coined by J.D. Scott, and who was the literary editor of Spectator 1954. And it included the important writers like Kingsley M.S., Philip Larkin, Donald Arif, D.J. Enright, Tom Gunn, Roy Fuller, Elizabeth Jennings, and Robert Conquest. So these were the important writers, and they were the light-minded English poets and away from romantic writing. They were anti-romantic, and they wanted to take back poetry to the traditions, is that like of Thomas Hardy, and using the formal verse. And two anthologies were New Lines and Poets of 1950s. So these are the important literary movements of postmodern era. Now, with this, we come to an end with the literary movements and trends in English literature series. So, this was the last topic, and it is very important. We are supposed to remember all the writers of the different movements that had happened in the different eras. So, it has been provided to people in a series and in a chronological order. Everything has been provided to you people. You can remember them. So writer from the each movement, you are supposed to remember the writer's name, because the question comes like which writer belonged to which um, movement. So you need to remember in that way. And with the notes, all the videos are available, so you can learn them. And thank you. I'll be providing you more material and more knowledgeable things that are required for your paper. Thank you.